All right, everybody. Welcome to another session of Control+M Presents. Thank you so much for joining us. As a reminder to everyone who's on the call, we are recording this session, so you're all on mute. So when question time comes along at the end of Jen's presentation, you'll need to remember to unmute yourself. Okay, well, on to today's topic. The topic for today is called Internal and Supplier Audits. But in reality, the audit module in Plex isn't just limited to internal and supplier audits. It can also be used for customer audits. And we've been seeing an uptick in customer experience audits coming up, so we thought you might want to use that for those as well. So our Jenn Berry is going to be taking you through the audits module. Jen's been here at Control+M for nearly 4 years. She's a former food and beverage user group leader, and she loves to dig into the configuration and find creative solutions for our clients. So take it away, Jenn, and teach us all about audits.
All right, thank you, Patty, and good morning, everyone. I'm glad you can join us for today's session on internal and supplier audits. For today's agenda, I will be defining what a supplier audit is, why we would want to use audits, as well as some examples of industry audits. We will take a look at audit types, settings, and setup tables, as well as a step-by-step configuration of an audit form template. Since the configuration of an audit form can be long and intensive, I will not be configuring it in the live demo. The live demo will consist of how to use the audit form after it has been configured. So before we get started on the training, I want to just review at a high level how Plex helps you manage your suppliers and certifications. Supplier audits are just a piece of the supplier quality management system that Plex offers. And sometimes it may be confusing as to how it may help you. So as I was creating this training, I had a question come up. How do supplier audits help me if I'm using scorecards? Do I need both? This was actually one of the many questions. So we decided to briefly break down the different modules within the QMS and to give you some examples as to how they can be used. This is not an inclusive list on how to use them, but we're hoping it will help you understand the potential uses of them. So let's take supplier assessments. These can be used to make sure a supplier's equipment is capable of producing what you will be purchasing. What is their equipment capable of? What is the capacity? How long can it run? Can it do the job you're expecting it to do? So you are basically assessing what your supplier is capable of doing for you. The problem control manages the issues you may be having with your suppliers or customers or internally. What is the problem? How will the problem be resolved? And why did the problem occur? The supplier audits can be used to determine if a supplier is in compliance with your requirements or industry standards and certifications. You can also use audits to audit a specific problem that has occurred with your supplier. Find out what happened by auditing their processes. Supplier scorecards, think of this as the high level score for your supplier. This score can be based off of the assessments, the audits, or the problems, just to name a few examples. And then last, the compliance module. The compliance module is used to make sure you are in compliance with certifications such as ISO, IATF, SQF, and many others. When your compliance module is set up, any of the QMS screens we just spoke about can be linked to your certification standards and therefore proving out your compliance. So even though today's session is specifically about supplier audits, the audit module can be used for other types of audits as well. For instance, you can set up a customer audit which would help your business better serve your customer and make sure you are complying with their expectations and where you may be falling short on those expectations. These types of audits can be linked to specific customers. So maybe not all your customers, they may not all be requiring the same performance from you. So this is why you want to link the specific customer to a specific audit. Internal out internal audits can be used to make sure you are complying with certifications or industry standards. Some examples of internal audits would be your SQF, your ISOs, your HACCPs, GMPs, IATFs. Supplier audits, which is what we are addressing today, can be used to ensure your supplier is conforming to all your requirements of them, and specific supplier records can be linked to them as well. Supplier audits can be used for different reasons. They can be used for approving a new supplier for purchasing. They can be used to audit specific problems, specific processes, and even actual specific supplier parts. Supplier audits can be done on site at the supplier, or if you use the supplier portal in Plex, the supplier can access the audit and complete it themselves. When you audit your supplier, you are making sure that they are complying with all your requirements as well as any industry requirements. You are holding them responsible to ensure they have proper controls and processes in place. Your audits could potentially reduce quality issues, and you might find yourself using that problem control module a little less by catching those pesky problems before they actually happen. So audits can be used as a proactive tool or a reactive tool, right? So proactively, your yearly supplier audit could potentially catch an issue before it becomes a problem. Or reactively, you would audit a supplier after a problem has occurred and needs to be resolved. Another reason to use audits is that in some industries, they require audits in order to maintain your certifications, like the ISO and the SQL. I have some examples of different types of industry required audits that can be configured and utilized in Plex for your records. Of course, this is not an inclusive list, just a few examples for you to, get an idea. There are all kinds of audits. There's social audits, quality, environmental, security. And an audit can also be whatever you want it to be. It does not have to be an industry regulated audit. You can create your own audits for whatever checks and balances your company views as important to them. So for training today, we will be setting up an approved supplier audit in order to make sure our new supplier is compliant with our requirements before we can approve them for purchasing. We want to make sure that their manufacturing processes and quality procedures are up to par with our own standards. So this is what the finished audit we built on for today. As we go through building our template, be aware that there will be 3 levels. The first level will consist of the form itself and the elements. These are developed from the setup tables. The second and third levels, which are the sections and questions, they will be added manually after the initial form and elements are set up. You are also required to have at least one element and one section with questions. A useful way to think of your audit is as an outline where you can define these levels and questions and then use the outline during your configuration. So I want to talk about the settings for the audit forms. So these are mainly used for viewing fields on the forms as opposed to functionality settings. So for example, maybe you have no need to link a part or a work center or a department to an audit. These are some of the fields that can be enabled or disabled to your needs. You also have some options for defaulting the audit form or the building if you need that as well. As we take a look at the setup tables that are required for you to build your audit form template, these setup tables will actually build the first level of your form. We'll be taking a look at these on the following slides for further explanation of each. When you're configuring your setup tables, it is best to do them in the order that you see on this slide, as this allows you to build that first level from the top down. So the first table is the audit form table. This is where you will assign the name of your audit template and whether you want to enable question scoring or not. Even though this table does not force you to enter a revision date, it is required. If you do not have a revision date, your form will not print and you will get an error. This is actually something I just found out yesterday, by the way. So today we are creating our approved supplier audit form that, when completed, can be used whenever we need to assign audits for new suppliers that need to be approved for purchasing. The template can also be used for yearly or time-based audits for continuing compliancy for your suppliers. You have one template that can be assigned to many audits. The audit status setup table is the status used at the top level, the entire audit. Where are you in the process? Is this a new audit that you haven't started yet? Is it in process? Is it in review? Or is it completed? These statuses can also be controlled by using workflow if you choose to do, if you choose so. The audit type setup table will determine if you will be linking a customer, a supplier, or if it will be a standard or an internal type. When the supplier or customer flag is enabled, it will allow you to see the customer or supplier link on the audit screen. If neither is flagged, then those fields will not be visible on the screen at all. The audit results table is linked to the specific audit form. Since they are linked to specific forms, they can be named differently depending on your needs. Color-coded the screenshot so you can see the different form results. These results are for the entire completed audit. Did the supplier pass or fail the entire audit, or do they need to be reviewed? The audit form element table is part of your level 1. You should have at least one element, but more can be added if you have audits that need to be broken out or categorized. Elements are also directly linked to a specific audit form template. You can see in the screenshot that these are all the elements that I have added for my approved supplier audit template. I created 10 elements in order to categorize them according to the questions I will assign later on. The audit element result table is for assigning pass, fail, review, or whatever your particular verbiage would be. And that is assigned to the element level itself. The element results are also linked to the specific audit form templates. If you can recall in our previous slide, I set up 10 different elements for my supplier audit form. Maybe 4 of those elements failed the audit and 4 passed, while the remaining 2 are on review. So each element can have its own result. The audit form question score table is not linked to any specific audit template. All the scores you create at this table will be available for all questions on all templates. It is best to keep this to a short, concise list to make sure that people completing and to make sure that people completing the audit know which scores to use for which audit template. Scoring your questions is also optional. You may not want to score every question. Maybe you just want to score the section or the element that those questions are grouped into. And this is determined by the question score enable flag on the audit form setup table. Now we have completed all our setup tables, which in turn has completed the first level of our audit form. We can now move to configuring our level 2. But before we move on, I would again suggest when you are adding a new audit form template that you assign the tables in the order shown on this slide. I have ordered them in the way that it creates that form level 1 from top to bottom. It's not required to do it in this order, but it does help in making sure that nothing is missed along the way. So now that we've created the audit form level 1, we can start configuring our next levels. So you will want to navigate to the Internal and Supplier Audit screen and drill into the admin link in the blue navigation bar. And then you would want to drill into the new template that we just created. When you drill into the template, you will see the entire first level is already populated. This is due to us setting up and linking the tables to this template. You can see the form header, which comes from the audit form table, the form elements, which come from the audit form element table, and the audit element results and the audit results, which both come from their respective tables as well. Now, in order to create level 2, which is your section level, you will need to drill into the element link on the level 1 screen. Once you drill into your element, you will need to drill into the Add Section link in the blue navigation bar. You will assign the section and name. For each element, you can have more than one section if you need to further categorize like we did with the elements. For this training, I am only adding one section per element and I'm naming it as the same. Now that we've completed our level 2, which is our sections, we can start to add our questions. We'll want to drill into the section name link to get to our 3rd level. In order to add your questions, you will drill into the Add Question link in the blue navigation bar. You'll enter your question number and the verbiage. You will repeat this step for all the questions for that specific section. And here is our completed level 3 question list for my first section that is linked to my first element. You will need to complete your template by adding your section and questions for each element that you have. Okay, so we have completed the steps on how to create an audit form template. I will now, in a live demo, show you how to use that template. I will first show you what the completed template looks like, and then we will use that template to create and complete an approved supplier audit. So what you want to do first is you want to navigate to the Internal and Supplier Audit screen. And from that screen, we're going to take a look at our completed template first. So we're going to drill into our admin in the blue navigation bar. And this gives you the access to see all of the templates that you have created. You can see here we have multiple templates, but today we're going to be looking at our approved supplier audit. Oh, and by the way, that admin button, that is a security action. So you can assign that to the proper roles. So not everyone can come into the templates. So I'm going to drill into my approved supplier audit and show you what it looks like once it's been completed. So this is our first level. Again, the top portion here, your header, comes from your audit form table. The second section here, your element details, comes from the elements table. And then we have our element results detail and our audit result and our audit results detail. And they both come from the setup tables as well. So we can drill down into each of our elements to see our sections that are below these elements. So I'm going to drill into my element number 1. And now I can see my section. So I have section A, which I named the same as my element. You can name it differently. And I also see my section scores, that I can score this entire section. And this would come in play where if you didn't want to score your questions individually, you can just score the whole section itself. Now, when I drill into my section, this is where we can see the questions that are assigned to that section. Here are all of my questions that are assigned to my element 1 and my section A. Okay, so each element will have sections and each section will have questions. And that's the 3 levels of our audit. So if we go back, we can use this template to create an audit. So the example I'm going to pose today is I have a new supplier who is supplier is called Ace Packaging, and we need to go out, we need to audit our supplier to make sure they comply with our standards before we can approve our purchasing department to place purchase orders for them. So I'm going to, in the blue navigation bar from the Internal and Supplier Audit screen, I'm going to click Add. And this screen here is how you're going to link the template and you're going to put your notes in here. So this is going to be a descriptive screen for your audit. So I'm going to call this ACE Approval Audit. Making it descriptive to the supplier since it's the supplier audit. So we have audit dates. You can, once this is completed, you can put in your completed date. We have audit types. Now, remember, this audit type is going to determine whether I can link my supplier to this or not. So I'm going to choose supplier type, and this will allow me to link my ACE packaging supplier to this specific audit. So once I chose supplier audit type, down here at the bottom of the screen, you can see that there's a field now that says supplier. And this is where I can link my supplier here. So let's move to the top and come back up here. So we have our supplier type of audit. Our audit status, I'm going to keep that new. As we go through the process, I can change it to in process, or pending review, whatever the status that this entire audit is in. This can also be driven by the workflow that I mentioned earlier. So for now, I'll just keep it as new. The audit form. So this is the important part. This is going to determine, the form that you're going to use for this audit. And I'm going to choose our approved supplier audit. So now that it's linked, Plex knows to use that template that we just created. You can put in verbiage into the audit scope. You have fields here for notes and products audited reasons. There's plenty of note fields here for you to fill in. You have fields here for building, department, and part. These are 3 that are settings based. You can turn these off if you don't see a need for them. And then down here at the bottom, I'm going to pull in that supplier that we're actually doing the audit for. Now, when I hit apply, up here in the blue navigation bar, we're going to get some more options. So I'm going to hit apply to save what I put in here. Now that I hit apply, I have options of adding a team member. So let's say, we have 3 people that are going on site to this supplier. I want to know who these people are. So when I come back and look at this record, I can say, all right, I know exactly who was on this audit. Maybe I need to go and ask these people some questions. So you have some options on adding team members. You can add team members through Plex users. You can have team members from contacts, from the contact records, or you can manually add a team member. So I'm just going to add one. I'll add one for each. So I'll add myself as the Plex user. Let's add a contact. Send here. I'll just contact person. And let's add a manual. You can manually add Ron Burgundy. And you can put a phone number in there, put email, you can put a note, position, things like that. Now we see we have our team built. And we know exactly who's assigned to do this audit. So another thing you can add here, another option you can add is you can add a problem. So if you're doing an audit, let's say you're doing an audit because there was a specific problem associated maybe to a specific part, and there's already a problem record created, you can actually link the problem record to this audit. Now, we wouldn't be doing it for what we're doing today, but I will show you how to add this in. So add problem reference up here in your blue navigation bar. And then you have your problem drop down, and then you can see all your open problems here that you have. And you can pick the one that will be associated as to why you're doing the audit. So now you actually have the problem, which comes from problem control, linked to this audit. Now, if you want to see the actual problem record itself, you can highlight it and view problem. And this will take you to the actual problem control record to see more details of what that problem is. Maybe you need to add some extra notes or fill in sections, things like that. And you can get to it right from the audit itself. Let's say you pulled the wrong problem in, you can come up and edit problem reference, and you can delete it from your audit record. Right, so we have actually, let me hit apply here just to make sure I see. So we have 2 options to actually view all the details of your audit. We have the summary print, which will show you a hard copy. This can be used, like, let's say you're on site, or even if you're doing an internal audit and you don't have hardware, you don't have like a tablet that you're carrying around with you. to where you can enter the results directly into Plex. You have the option of printing it on paper and then filling it out, and then taking those results and then putting them into Plex when you have time. You can also attach. So let's take a look at our summary print. So our summary print, the first page is going to be basically just a replica of the screen that we were just on, right? So it's going to tell you um, the supplier that you're auditing, or customer, if you're doing a customer audit, or if it's an internal audit. It's just going to give you the details from the audit screen that we just filled out. It gives you your team members. If there was a problem linked, it will show up here. I took the problem off, so it's not going to print on here. So this is just kind of like your header page for your. If we go to the second page of the audit, this is going to be the summary of all of your elements. So I have my 10 elements here. And and these are blank because of course we haven't scored anything yet. This is where if you're taking this hard copy with you throughout the facility, you can be scoring as you go along. Now, each page after that, you can see it's a 12-page document. Each page is a separate element. So you see we have our element number 1, and our section was A. And these are the questions that were under our section A. And as the team member goes through the facility, they can score each question and put their notes in. And like I said, at a later time, they can enter them back into Plex, as well as upload this document as an attachment. Each page is going to be separate, each element. And that's good. Why? Because if you have 3 team members doing this, you can split the pages out, give each team member 3 pages, 3 elements to do, and each element will be on a separate page. So that's the hard copy view. So let's say you do have a tablet that you can, enter your scores right into Plex as you're going through the facility. That option we're going to look at is the audit summary. So that audit summary is going to allow you to put in your results right away. And once you open the audit summary, it's going to allow you to see all of your elements. And when you drill into your elements, I'm going to drill into my first one, my select fabrication. You're immediately going to have the questions pop up. But you're like, okay, well, how do I put my answers in there? What you want to do is you can edit audit questions. And then that gives you the option. Now you can score each question. So let's go through a couple of these. And also, this is if you can recall back, this is a setup table, the audit question score setup table, where all of these scores will show on every single type of template that you make. So this was the importance of keeping this kind of small and concise, and to also let your auditors know which kind of scores you want on the audit, because it could be easily, in their mind, they may think, well, it conforms, but maybe you don't want conforms on this supplier audit. Maybe you only want to use pass fail review or NA, something like that. So they would really have to know which scores to use for which audit. I have a bunch of questions here. I can put notes in if I like. So we have a bunch of them that passed. We have 2 of them that failed. can put in notes. And then we can say apply. Hide it. And the record has been updated. And let's go back. So we've answered under section A of our first element, we've answered all of our questions. Now, how do we want to score this? What is the result? Well, the result is it failed, right? Maybe give it a score. Score is it failed. Maybe we want to say we want to score it as failed, but maybe we want to say we're going to review it. Keep that at review. The result is a review. The score is a fail. Say okay. And now you can see up here, these are our 10 elements that have sections of questions under them that we haven't answered yet. Our first element we've answered, we have a result of review, a score of 2, which is a fail. And then let's say we've completed all of these sections. I don't want to do it or else we're going on forever today. But let's say we've completed all of these and scored everything. We have here your audit result, right? So this is the entire audit is completed. Now, what is the result of the entire audit? Do we want to pass, fail, review this audit? And again, this is going to be your own verbiage. So let's say we're going to fail this audit. No, we're going to say review. We have it in review. So we can say we're going to review it. Well, who's responsible for following this up? You can assign someone to follow that up. When do we want to follow it up by? Maybe we'll give them a month. We'll give them a couple months. And then you can put your notes in here. So the entire audit results are in review, follow-up person and the date. Now when I say okay, it comes back to the main screen. And this is where if you're not using workflow, just make sure your audit status is updated. And we'll just say it's pending review right now. And again, you can put notes in here. So let's say you do have an audit form that is pending review. You have some kind of options on how you want to do this, right? Do you want to keep the initial audit showing the failure? If you do, you might want to create a new audit, like a new review audit based on the original audit. You would just create a whole new form. Or you can actually go into the audit itself, into the audit summary, and you can actually make changes. So you can go back into your element, back into the questions. You can change the question. You can say, okay, well, now they passed. We reviewed it and they passed it. And now they've passed it. You can write a note in here. Review, fix floors. Just barely pass that one. You can update the questions. You can update your result. You can update your score. You can go back into the audits and change them. And again, it's a security based. So make sure only people who have, the access or the level, make sure that the only ones that have security access to change the audits and update the audits. And we can change our entire audit results to pass. So you can see that we've passed it, maybe now it's completed. It's completed. Now, if we go into the summary print, we can actually see that information that we've put in whereas before everything was blank and empty. Now we can see our element here. So now it shows the past, It shows that we have a score of 1 that was passed. And again, the element questions has the new answers, has our new notes in there. So again, even the hard copy is going to be updated according to what you're putting into Plex. All right, so just a couple more things I want to go over. At the admin, my apologies. I'm getting ahead of myself here. You're back at the internal and supplier audit screen. If we drill into the admin, go into our form. This is what I wanted to see. We're in our form. Now remember, we did all of those tables, those setup tables up front. But once you're in your form, you do have the ability to basically have a shortcut to those tables. And I wanted to show you this because if you use the shortcut from the template that you've already created, it's going to hard code. Let me drill in here. It's going to hard code the form in there for you. I wanted to show you that. Well, and some of the tables will force that form in there. Okay, like this audit result, which if we did it from the setup table screen, you could pick which form you want that audit result to go to. If you do it from your template, it will force that template to be assigned to your new audit result. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. So I think that actually is what I have for the live demo right now. And I do have just a couple of quick tips here that I want to talk to you about. So before we move on to the Q&A, I just showed you, we do have some options for copying elements, sections, and questions. And I want you, when copying the different elements, sections, and questions, I want you to proceed with caution when using the copy function. I would highly suggest that you copy and test first before you roll it out in live. You just want to make sure that what you're copying is exactly what you want. It can be a little wonky. So just test it before you trust it. Again, the setup table links on the forms as well. These can be used for adding new table records on the fly. Just be careful because it will automatically default to the record that you are on. And also I strongly urge that you have your audit laid out in some format that will be easily understood when you're configuring it in Plex. You know, whether that's an outline, a flow chart, or even if you already have one that you've used previously, just use that form. I don't recommend doing this by flying by the seat of your pants on this one or doing it by memory. So yeah, so that would be it for the tips I have, and I guess we can move on to our Q&A.
Thanks, Jen. I just want to remind everybody on the call that you are on mute. So if you have a question, either take yourself off mute or I will watch the chat. I wanted to bring up one thing before anyone has too many questions. Wanted to bring up one thing. One of my clients actually uses internal audits to do 5S audits at their company. So you can really be creative. Any process that you want to manage, you can use to audit that. So do we have any questions? I'm watching the chat. I mean, you did go pretty in depth, Jen, so. Tell you what, if anybody does have any questions, you can always reach out to Jennifer at Control+M.Solutions. So Jennifer, once again, great job. Can you please show our next slide? Our next session is going to be held on April 24th at noon Eastern. Amber Zancoli is going to be going over best practices and configuration of Plex cycle counting. including setup of automated cycle generation, which basically lets you effectively conduct ABCD type counts, how to clean out old cycles, and best methods of executing cycle counting. We're going to have a little bit of break in there because of the Plex Community Days that we're going to be excited to be part of the hosting for. So anyway, thanks for joining us today. I will be processing and uploading this video to our YouTube channel this afternoon. Please check it out. There are over 70 videos of training content available to you on that channel. And if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up or subscribe and spread the word. Remember, these sessions are no cost, no obligation, and they're available to everyone in the Plex community. So share the news with the rest of your company and anyone else that you know who uses Plex. So have a great day, everyone. Again, thanks for joining us, and excellent job, Jen.